I feed something that lives in the basement of the fire department, the door beneath the hose tower. If you ever visit Station 17, the old firehouse on the outskirts of Calvary Ridge, don't ask about the basement. Don't ask why the metal door next to the hose tower is always bolted shut. And above all, never ask who I feed every night after midnight. This isn't just a story. This is a confession. And I need to tell someone before it's too late, before it gets loose again. The first time I walked into the firehouse, it smelled of soot, oil, and a memory I couldn't place. I was 23, fresh out of the academy, and eager to prove myself. Station 17 wasn't glamorous. It was barely functional. It sat half swallowed by trees, its red paint faded, shingles flaking like dried scabs. But it was the only station that would take me. I didn't question why. Chief Merrick was the first to greet me, a tall man with a shaved head, skin like cracked leather, and eyes that never blinked long enough to look human. "You'll be on nights," he said. "Graves, midnight to 8. I wanted to protest. Every rookie hoped for days, to be seen, to impress. But I nodded. "Yes, sir." His face didn't move. "Good. And one more thing." I waited, nervous. "You'll handle the feeding, since your shift matches the schedule." I furrowed my brows. "Feeding?" He turned away, motioning to the rear of the station. "You'll understand soon enough. Just do it like it's always been done, and don't," he paused, his voice cold, final, "don't ever open the second lock." The first night felt quiet. Too quiet for a firehouse. We had no calls. Not one. Just a strange silence pressing in on the walls like a heavy fog. I wandered the halls, expecting to meet the other night crew, but the place felt abandoned. Dust swirled in the beams of my flashlight. I heard floorboards creak that shouldn't have. At 12:15 a.m., I heard it, a low thump, then a dragging sound, metal on cement, followed by a rasping breath. I froze near the hose tower. The noise came from behind the rusted metal door Merrick had pointed out earlier. A thick iron handle protruded from the frame, secured with 2 locks, one modern padlock and one antique bolt with an oddly shaped keyhole. The noise grew louder. Thump, drag, scrape, a heavy body shifting below. Breathing, waiting. I backed away slowly, but my radio crackled. Chief Merrick's voice slithered through, quiet but commanding. "Time for the feeding, rookie. Get the tray in the kitchen. Don't keep it waiting." The tray was already prepared when I got to the kitchen. A dented metal cart, covered in a gray tarp. The smell hit me before I even touched it. Raw meat, pungent and wet, mixed with something sour, decayed. There were no labels, no explanation, just thick slabs of meat seeping into the cloth. I rolled the cart slowly down the back corridor, the wheels squeaking like they were protesting what I was about to do. When I reached the door, I noticed the bottom of the metal was stained, black, as if something had seeped out years ago and burned into the cement floor. My hands shook as I unlocked the padlock. The modern one clicked easily. I reached for the antique bolt, but stopped. Merrick's voice echoed in my head. "Don't ever open the second lock." Instead, I pulled the small door slot open, a narrow chute just big enough to slide the tray through. Cold air rushed from the darkness behind it. It wasn't the kind of cold that came from a draft. It felt wrong. Heavy. Hungry. I shoved the tray inside as quickly as I could and slammed the chute shut. Then the sound started. Wet, slurping. Bones snapping. Something growling low and deep, too low for any animal I'd known. Something speaking, maybe, muttering. I backed away slowly, then turned and ran. For a few nights, I told myself it was a prank, a rite of passage. Maybe some old generator down there made weird noises, and the meat was just scraps for strays. I didn't ask questions, but then things got worse. I started finding black feathers outside the firehouse door. Not crow feathers. These were oily, longer, twisted like they'd been scorched. Some were still twitching. Once, I found a small jawbone. Human, child-sized. When I asked the others, they ignored me. One of the senior guys, Alvarez, pulled me aside. "Don't dig," he whispered. "We all feed it. We all pretend it's not there. That's how we survive. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in the watchroom, staring at the basement door on the monitor. I watched it vibrate slightly at 12:15, then stop. But that night, the tray came back empty. Someone had pulled it back up the chute, except I hadn't. I confronted Chief Merrick the next day. I found him in his office, the blinds drawn, the room thick with cigarette smoke. "You told me never to open the second lock," I said, "but it opened from the inside." He didn't look surprised. He didn't even look up. "That happens sometimes," he said flatly. "Just make sure the tray's full. And don't be here alone on the 13th night." "The what?" He stubbed his cigarette out slowly. "Every 13 nights, it gets stronger. The door bulges. The lock strain. That's the night it hungers for more than meat." I laughed, bitter and hollow. "What the hell are we feeding down there?" His eyes finally met mine. They were sunken, red, and dead. "Not what? Who?" Night 13 came fast. I counted obsessively, checked the calendar, marked every tray. But deep down, I knew it was building toward something. That night, just before midnight, I found Alvarez in the locker room. He was pale, sweating, muttering to himself. "They picked her last time," he whispered. "One of the dispatchers. We said she quit. We lied." I grabbed his arm. "Who decides? Who's next?" He stared at me. You're on the schedule now." Midnight hit, and I realized the tray wasn't in the kitchen this time. There was a note instead. "It's your turn. It's hungry for something new." My body ran before my brain did. I sprinted out of the firehouse, heart hammering, lungs burning. But the woods outside seemed closer, thicker, wrong. The trees pressed in, shadows moving just out of reach. I saw the headlights of my car. I reached for the door. It wouldn't open. Behind me, I heard it again. Thump, drag, the breathing. It wasn't coming from the basement. It was outside now, following me, and it knew my name. It knew my name. I ran. The trees clawed at my arms as I pushed through the thicket behind the firehouse, branches whipping against my face like fingers trying to pull me back. The thing behind me didn't run. It didn't need to. Its breath echoed through the forest, heavy, deep, like a furnace that breathed smoke and rot. Every exhale made the air thicker, harder to swallow. The firehouse lights flickered behind me once, then died completely. It was out, and it had waited 13 nights just to follow me. I tripped. My knees hit damp earth. Something slick clung to my palms when I pushed myself up, like mucus, but warm. It pulsed. I didn't look at what it was. I kept moving. A scream ripped through the trees. Not mine. Not human. It sounded like every voice I'd ever heard, screaming all at once. I spotted the old maintenance shack at the edge of the property. Its roof had half collapsed from years of rain and snow, but the door was intact. I bolted inside and slammed it shut behind me. Silence. No breathing. No footsteps. But I didn't relax. I pressed my back against the door and slid to the floor, shaking. My radio crackled. "You made it mad." Merrick's voice rasped through the static. "Now it'll want more than just you." I stared at the radio, barely able to breathe. What the hell is it? Static again. Then, we don't know what it was. We only know what it became. The shack smelled like rot and gasoline. Tools hung from rusted hooks. The floor was littered with old rags and fire gear long since condemned. I reached for the radio again, but it was dead now. Just static. Then, something thumped against the wall outside. Not hard. Just once. Like a warning. Then again. I held my breath, pulling my legs in tight. Something was walking past the shack. Slow. Deliberate. The breathing was closer now, almost behind me. But the wall was still there. Nothing visible through the broken windows. Just fog and night. Then the sound changed. It whispered. Not words. Not language. But syllables. Repeating. Soft. Like it was trying to form my name. "Caleb, Caleb." I almost screamed. I jammed a screwdriver through the shack door latch, hoping it would hold. I didn't sleep. When the sun finally rose, I stepped out. Everything was silent again, like nothing had ever happened. But the trail of soot-colored footprints leading back toward the firehouse said otherwise. Inside Station 17, it was like the night never happened. Merrick was already in his office. The other firefighters were back. The lights were on. Coffee brewed. No one spoke a word. Alvarez sat across the kitchen table, staring into his mug like he saw his own death floating in the foam. "You ran," he said. I nodded. "You weren't supposed to run." "What would have happened if I stayed?" He didn't answer. Instead, he lifted his shirt just enough to show the edge of a scar. It wasn't a burn or a cut. It looked like teeth had sunk into his side. Long, wide, inhuman teeth. "I stayed," he said. "I told Merrick I wanted out, that I was quitting, that I'd file a report with the chief of the city stations, or the damn mayor if I had to." He didn't stop me. He handed me a folded envelope instead. Inside was a photograph. Old, black and white. It showed the firehouse, decades ago, except the basement door was open, and something stood in it. Tall, skin stretched too tightly over bones. A face that was all eyes, rows and rows of them, blinking in no direction, in every direction at once. "Every generation has a feeder," Merrick said. "You're not the first, but you might be the last." I dropped the photo. "I'm leaving." He didn't stop me, but Alvarez did. He blocked the exit. "If you leave, it will follow you." I shoved past him and ran anyway. That night, I didn't go home. I drove, for hours, out of town, into the city, then beyond, motel to motel. I turned my phone off, paid in cash, burned the photo in a trash can behind a diner. But it didn't matter, because I still heard it. At night, outside my window, the slow scrape of bone fingers on glass. The whisper, "Caleb." It found me on the fifth night. I was asleep in a motel outside Lake Merrow. The ceiling fan rattled. The lights flickered. I sat up in bed, cold sweat sticking the sheets to my skin. Then I noticed something. The door in my room was open, not kicked in, not broken, just ajar. And on the carpet, next to the bed, was a firehouse tray, empty, slick with blood. I drove back to Calvary Ridge the next morning. Station 17 was waiting for me. No one said anything as I walked back in. No judgment, no glares. Only Merrick, standing at the basement door with two things in his hands, the padlock and the key to the second lock. "You broke the cycle," he said. "It followed you because you ran. I'm not feeding it again. It doesn't want food anymore." He handed me the key. I didn't unlock the second bolt. Not right away. But I stayed. Started sleeping in the watchroom. Waking every night at 12:15 to push the tray through the chute. The feeding resumed. The noises returned. But this time it spoke clearer. "You know me." Each night, it got more confident, more human. It began asking for specific things. Not meat, names. First, strangers. Then townspeople. Then firefighters. I ignored it, refused, kept feeding it meat, kept the names to myself. But on the next 13th night, the tray was dragged back out again. On it was a message written in blood. "You or them." I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just stared at the key Merrick gave me, lying on the desk. I didn't want to know what was behind that door, but I knew I'd have to, because the next time I went down there, the second lock was already half-turned, the lock that turned itself. The second lock wasn't fully undone, just turned far enough to rattle when I touched it, as if it had been handled, as if something from the other side had tried to open it, and then stopped right before crossing the line. My hand hovered over the key Merrick had given me. It felt heavier than metal, like holding a sin. I didn't open the lock. Instead, I doubled the meat on the tray. Slabs of raw organs, intestines, 2 full cow hearts Merrick said were leftovers. I slid them through the chute and slammed it shut. The response came almost instantly. A groan, disappointment. Then came a scratching noise that echoed in loops up the chute, like claws slowly carving words into steel. "You," or "them." By the time morning arrived, I convinced myself I would quit again, this time for real. Walk away. Leave this cursed place behind. But when I reached my car, the tires had been slashed. All four. Feathers were stuffed into the tailpipe, not bird feathers. Long, spined, oily ones that curl like they were alive. Alvarez walked up behind me. His eyes were sunken, as if he hadn't slept in weeks. He didn't look surprised. "It's binding now," he said. "You fed it too long. You're marked." "I never asked for this." He laughed once, dry and sharp. "None of us did. That's what makes the contract fair." "What contract?" "The one none of us remember signing." Later that day, Merrick called a meeting. All 10 of us sat in the Firehouse kitchen. It smelled like bleach and blood. No one ate. He placed a thick binder on the table. Cracked leather, stained with age and something darker. The cover read only one word. Ledger. Inside were pages filled with names. Handwritten entries. Some crossed out, others still clean. "Every feeder eventually understands," Merrick said. "You feed it meat for a while, but eventually it demands payment in kind. Blood for blood. You give it someone, or it takes someone. Either way, the balance must be kept." He slid the binder toward me. "Pick a name, or be the name." I looked down at the list and saw my own name had already been written. That night, I didn't feed it. I stayed in the kitchen, lights off, heart pounding. 12:15 came. The door in the basement shook. Not like before. This time it rattled like it was ready to explode off the hinges. The walls trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Pipes groaned. Then silence. I stood up slowly, thinking it had passed. Then the scream came, not from the basement, from upstairs. I ran to the second floor, feet pounding the metal steps. I followed the sound down the hallway toward the dorm rooms. Room 3, Alvarez's bunk. The door was open. Inside there was blood. On the walls, the bed, the ceiling, splattered in hand-like patterns that were too large, too wide. The mattress was split down the middle like something had been dragged through it. Alvarez was gone. His boots were still at the edge of the bed. His radio buzzed once, then died. Merrick didn't say anything when I returned to the kitchen. Neither did anyone else. They just looked at me with hollow stares. Not angry, just tired. Another name scratched off the ledger. The next night, the tray was clean again. The chute pulled open from the other side. The meat untouched. Instead, a new note waited inside. More. I stopped sleeping. I started seeing things. In reflections. In shadows. In the dark gaps between the walls and the lockers, where no light ever seemed to reach. Sometimes I'd catch a flicker of movement. Too fast to follow. Too large to belong to anything living. One night, I passed the basement door and caught a glimpse beneath it. A face, pressed against the floor, watching me. Its eyes weren't human. Not quite, but they remembered how to look like they had been. One morning, I got a call from dispatch. A girl had gone missing 2 blocks from the station. Teenager. Walking home from school. Vanished between 2 streetlights. Police found no struggle. No witnesses. No leads. Only a trail of long black feathers scattered across the sidewalk. I didn't tell them I'd seen the same kind of feathers in the Firehouse kitchen just hours earlier. Didn't tell them that the meat had remained untouched for 3 days. Didn't tell them that I'd been hearing the girl's voice whispering through the vent behind the chute. Days blurred together. Fire calls became rare. No one questioned it. I began finding names written in the steam on the mirrors of the bathroom, dripping in perfect cursive, always fading too fast to photograph. Sometimes the names belonged to people I knew. Sometimes they didn't. Once, I saw my mother's name. She lived 6 towns away. I called her immediately. She answered, safe, alive. But when I asked her what she dreamed the night before, she paused. "A man with too many eyes," she said quietly. He was knocking on the basement door. I broke on the 27th night. I picked a name. Random. Someone from the town registry. A man I'd never met. Joseph Pelton, age 44. history teacher. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, so I just wrote his name in a ledger. The next morning, his house burned to ground. Fire department found no cause. His body was never recovered, but a note was left behind in the mailbox. 6 words. Dead accepted. More will be due. After that, it got easier. I told myself they were strangers, that I wasn't choosing, just continuing the cycle, keeping the balance. I stopped eating meat, couldn't look at it, stopped leaving the station except when absolutely necessary. The firehouse felt like a prison, or a stomach, something digesting all of us, slowly. Then one night, something changed. I heard footsteps upstairs. Heavy, slow. I wasn't alone. Merrick was asleep. Everyone else was gone. I crept to the 2nd floor, flashlight in hand. The hallway was dark. Too dark. Like the shadows weren't shadows at all, but liquid darkness poured into the air. Then the lights flickered. Something moved at the end of the hallway. Not walked. Floated. It had no feet. Just a mass of tangled limbs. Eyes blooming across its chest like fungus. Mouth stitched closed but twitching like it was trying to speak. It held the ledger in its claws. I ran back down. The basement door was open, not just a padlock. Both locks. The door hung crooked on its hinges. Behind it, only blackness. But I could feel it staring, smiling, and waiting. What comes through? The door shouldn't have been open. Both locks undone. The chute ripped clean off. The iron hinges twisted like wax under a blowtorch. The air beyond was thick with heat, but not fire. It smelled like old copper and rot, like something that had been buried too long and just remembered how to breathe. I didn't want to look inside, but I did. There were stairs. Winding, crumbling concrete steps, disappearing into a blackness that swallowed my flashlight beam hole. No sound came from the dark. No breath. No voice. Just a silence so deep it made my ears ring. I stepped back. Then I saw it. Something moved at the bottom of the stairs. Fast. Not toward me. Across. A glimpse of limbs bending the wrong way. Bones that stretched and retracted. Skin like tar soaked in ash. Then it was gone. I slammed the door shut. There was no way to lock it anymore. The next day, the firehouse felt wrong. Everyone was quiet. Even the walls seemed to hum with tension. Alvarez's bunk was still empty. No one had filled it. Merrick handed me a manila envelope at noon. No explanation. Just a hard stare. Inside was a single name. Caitlin Fors. I froze. My stomach turned. She was a new dispatcher. Just 19. Bright, hopeful. Always humming old songs when she typed. I stormed into Merrick's office. No. His eyes didn't move from the folder he was reading. You don't choose, he said. It does. I won't do it. Then she'll vanish anyway. And so will someone else. Maybe 2. Maybe 5. That's how it works. I clenched the envelope in my fist. I'm not writing the name. He finally looked at me. You already did, when you opened the door. I tried to warn Caitlin. I told her not to come in that night. I told her the system was glitching, that the radio lines were being checked. She smiled and said she could handle it, that she needed the hours. I offered to drive her home. She laughed. No offense, Caleb, but you look like you haven't slept in years. She was right. I hadn't. At 12:15 a.m., the firehouse lights went out. Every single one. No storm. No outage. Just gone. The generator should have kicked on. It didn't. Only the red emergency light stayed on, dim, flickering, casting long shadows across the kitchen floor. I ran to the dispatch room. Caitlin was gone. The chair was spinning. The headset lay on the floor. There were feathers near the door. Not just a few. A pile. I heard movement above me. Scratching. Then footsteps. I bolted upstairs. Room 4. Her locker was open. Her shoes sat perfectly aligned beneath the bench. But she wasn't there. The window was wide open. Curtains fluttered in the breeze. And on the wall, written in something dark and dripping, "You waited too long." I couldn't breathe. I stumbled back into the hallway. The overhead lights buzzed once, then died completely. For a moment, everything was black, then blue. A soft, pulsing light poured from the stairwell, leading to the basement. It wasn't a light bulb, not a lantern. It pulsed like a heartbeat, like something alive was waiting, and breathing, and calling me home. I followed it. Each step down felt like sinking into thick water. The air changed, grew heavier, smelled like mildew and scorched earth. The blue glow pulsed ahead, just out of reach. At the bottom of the stairs, the corridor stretched into darkness. The walls here were no longer cement. They were flesh, slick and pulsing, veins twitching just beneath the surface. I gagged. The corridor curved left, then right, then opened into a vast chamber. And that's where I saw it. It was not a creature, not in the way we understand creatures. It was architecture, built of hunger, a tower of limbs and teeth, stitched to torsos and bone, none of it aligned, none of it still. Faces stare at me from impossible places. Elbows, hips, the backs of knotted hands. Eyes blink from the ceiling. Tongues lolled from walls. It was the nightmare of a god that had once been human and chose never to be again. In its center, something was pulsing, a core of light, blue, throbbing like a heart. And inside it, Caitlin, alive, screaming. But no sound escaped her mouth. Her body twisted, suspended in the core like jelly. Her eyes met mine. They pleaded. Then something pulled her deeper into the glow. I stepped forward, rage boiling through my veins. You wanted her? Take me. The chamber responded, not with words, with movement. The walls trembled. The faces turned toward me. Eyes open across the floor, following my every step. The air thickened. My ears rang. My nose bled. You broke it. Merrick's voice echoed from behind me. I turned. He was standing at the top of the corridor, pale, still, hands clasped behind his back. You let the second lock open. It's awake now. I'm going to kill it. Merrick laughed, not cruelly, sadly. You can't kill hunger. You can only feed it. The floor cracked beneath my feet. A maw opened where there had been stone. Teeth rose like columns. The blue glow faded, replaced by red, a deep, ancient red. I ran, didn't look back. The corridor changed behind me, walls folding in, reshaping, trying to trap me. But I made it, up the stairs, through the crooked door, into the cold firehouse air. And when I looked back, the door was closed again. Both locks, secured, waiting. The others never asked where Caitlin went. Another name scratched from the board. Another empty room. I watched the cameras that night. Saw the tray pulled back through the chute. It left something behind. A photo. Caitlin, standing in front of the firehouse, smiling. But her eyes had changed. Too wide. Too many. The ledger bleeds. The photo of Caitlin wouldn't burn. I tried. Threw it into the incinerator behind the station. The one we use for condemned gear and hazardous waste. The flames curled around it, orange and angry, but the paper remained intact, not even warm. Her face in the picture just stared at me, eyes that weren't hers anymore, smiling like she found peace in the pit of a monster's stomach. I buried it in the dumpster behind the station. It was back on my desk the next morning. The ledger changed, too. It used to be a record, ink on paper. Now the names were scratched in deep, ragged gouges that smelled like rust and salt water. Some bled, literal drops, soaking through the paper and dripping onto the table below. The blood was warm. I touched it once. It stung. New names appeared every morning. Not just random townspeople anymore. People I knew, old friends from high school, my childhood dentist, my sister, each one written in a different style, like different hands had carved them, or claws. The one common thing, they were all dated. Each name had a time beside it, a deadline. Merrick stopped speaking. He didn't come out of his office anymore. I caught glimpses of him sometimes, pacing behind the blinds, muttering into a recorder or his own hands. The last time we made eye contact, he looked straight through me. He hadn't slept. His skin had started to peel, like something underneath was trying to get out. We had a fire call the next evening, first in weeks. An abandoned barn 10 miles east, fully engulfed. By the time we got there, the flames were gone. Nothing left but ash and blackened wood. And in the center of the ruins, standing untouched, was a ledger, same one, open to a fresh page. A single name written on it, Caleb Wilder, 12:15 a.m. That was me. I didn't go back to the station. I ran. This time, not out of town. Down the mountain. There's a church in the valley. Old, crumbling, never open. Locals say it's cursed, that the ground beneath it sank during a flood decades ago, dragging half the foundation into the earth. But the bell still rings every Sunday. I broke in, lit every candle I could find, slept under the altar. When I woke, the church smelled like smoke and meat, and someone had drawn a door on the wall in soot. 2 locks, one already open. The tray was waiting for me outside the church. Same as always, except this time, it didn't hold meat. It held a knife, long, jagged, handmade, wrapped in something that looked like skin, stitched together with wire and hair. The note beneath it said, "Make your choice." I went back. I had no other option. Station 17 stood exactly as I'd left it. Quiet, still, but something had changed. The air around it buzzed, like electricity, but darker, meaner, like the sound flies make when they're trapped in a jar. The basement door was wide open, both locks on the floor, and inside, the stairs were pulsing, breathing, with that same blue-red glow I'd seen before. I didn't hesitate. I took the knife, and I went down. The walls whispered, not words, names. So many names. Ones I recognized, ones I didn't. They poured through the stone like steam, filling the air with voices begging, warning, laughing. When I reached the bottom, the chamber was different. The faces were gone. The limbs, the bone tower, all vanished. Now there was only a mirror, 10 feet tall, framed in black roots, throbbing with light. I stepped closer and saw myself, but not. The version in the mirror was older, taller, smiling. His eyes weren't mine. There were too many. He stepped out, one leg, then the other, shimmering like heat on pavement. No footsteps, no sound, just presence. "You've done well," he said in my voice. "The cycle is almost complete." I raised a knife. "What are you?" He tilted his head. "A reflection. A copy. A seed." He stepped forward. "And you are the soil." I lunged. The knife struck true, straight into his chest. But there was no blood, just black smoke. He didn't flinch. He laughed. And then I felt it, my hand, burning, sinking. The knife was stuck. My skin stretched, pulling into his. I screamed. He leaned close. "You were never meant to feed me. You were meant to become me." I pulled back, ripped the knife free. Chunks of something came with it, gray, twitching. The figure staggered. I ran. The corridor behind me collapsed, walls folding like paper, floor tilting upward. I barely made it to the door before the whole basement roared behind me. Then, silence. The firehouse light snapped on. Normal. Bright. The ledger sat on the kitchen table. Closed. No names inside. Not a single one. That was 3 nights ago. No one's gone missing since. No whispers. No tray. The door remains sealed. But sometimes, just sometimes, I hear tapping from behind the wall. Like nails. Waiting. The new shift. The silence didn't last. I should have known better. The night after the tapping started, I found the tray back in the kitchen. But it wasn't metal anymore. It looked like bone. Polished white. The surface was lined with deep, spiral carvings, like ancient symbols burned into it. It pulsed when I touched it. Just once. Like a heartbeat. There was no meat on it. No note this time. Just a mirror shard. And when I looked into it, it blinked. The next shift felt wrong. The others moved like shadows. They spoke, but their voices were hollow, like they were speaking through water. I watched one of the rookies, Darren, walk past the wall without his reflection showing in the glass case next to it. When I called his name, he didn't turn. Merrick was nowhere. His office door was gone. Not closed, gone. Like there had never been a door there at all. Just seamless wall, painted over and smooth. The ledger reappeared in my bunk. Open. No names inside. Just a new heading. Witnesses. And beneath it, a list. 1. Caleb Wilder. 2. The rest of the page was blank. Waiting. I started dreaming again. At least I thought they were dreams. Woke up one night standing at the basement door, holding the bone tray, barefoot, shirtless, bleeding from my eyes. The door was still locked. The second lock twitched when I touched it, like a heartbeat under iron. I went back upstairs. The lights flickered in the kitchen. Every drawer was open, and inside each one, a piece of fire gear soaked in something red and thick. Boots, gloves, helmets, all labeled with names I didn't recognize. I checked the station roster. None of them had ever worked here. Merrick finally returned. Not in the firehouse, but in my room. I woke to find him sitting in the corner, eyes glazed, mouth stitched shut with wire. His chest rose and felt like he was breathing water. Something thumped inside his throat. He held out the ledger. I didn't want to take it. He didn't move. So I reached out slowly, fingers trembling. The second I touched it, the room melted, literally. The ceiling poured downward like tar. The bed twisted, swallowing itself. The light bulb above us screamed like a dying animal. And then, we were in the basement again. The chamber. The mirror. Only now the mirror had cracked. From inside. Through the crack, I saw not one of me, but hundreds. Each reflection different. Some older, some twisted, some with no eyes, others with too many. Some screaming, one smiling and holding a burning baby in his arms. Then one of them looked up, straight at me, and whispered, "Tag, you're..." I woke up screaming, covered in soot. The others didn't ask what happened. They were all staring at the kitchen wall. A new door had appeared, thin, tall, painted black. It wasn't part of the firehouse blueprint. Alvarez said nothing, just walked up to it, put his hand on the knob, paused, then turned to me and said, "It's your turn." I opened it. Behind the door was a staircase made of fire hoses. They pulsed under my weight. The walls wept water as I descended, thick, brown, and warm. At the bottom, there was a hallway made entirely of mirrors. Each mirror showed something different, not reflections, memories. One showed me the day I first walked into Station 17. Another showed me as a child, holding a flashlight in a dark hallway, trembling as something stood behind me. Another showed my mother, tied to a chair in the middle of the firehouse kitchen, whispering my name. Then the last one showed Merrick, burning, laughing, pointing at me. I smashed the mirror. It bled. The hallway flooded with black smoke, and I heard the fire alarm go off inside my head. Then came the sirens, dozens of them, but they weren't sirens from trucks. They were wailing, screaming, crying, laughing, all at once. I collapsed, woke up in the kitchen again. The others were still frozen, staring at the black door. It was gone. In its place, a wall made of stitched-together mouths. One of them opened and said, "You're doing well, Caleb, but there's so much more to learn." I tried to leave again, made it to the edge of town this time, but something was wrong with the sky. It didn't end. The road looped. The clouds pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. Every sign pointed back to the firehouse. Every tree had my face carved into the bark. Eventually, I gave up, walked back. No one said a word, not even the building, but it felt like it was smiling. That night, I sat in the basement, alone. I didn't bring the tray, didn't bring food. I just sat on the stairs and waited. At 12:15, the air changed. Something slithered along the ceiling. A voice spoke from the dark, not human, not even pretending to be anymore. "Are you ready?" I swallowed. My voice was barely mine when I replied, "Yes." Then the stairs folded upward, and the basement turned inside out, inside the upside. Gravity bent the wrong way. The stairs coiled like a serpent, wrapping me in themselves. 1 second I was upright, the next I was crawling, sideways, backward, then floating. My skin stretched, like my bones forgot what they were meant to hold. The basement wasn't the basement anymore. It was inside out. No floors, no walls, just a hollow, shifting space made of everything the firehouse had ever seen. A flickering film strip of its horrors on loop. The burning child from a 3-alarm fire in '82. The rookie who hung himself in the hose tower. The lieutenant who went down to check a gas leak and came back 3 days later without a face. They floated around me. Echoes, ghosts, warnings. I tried to scream. My mouth filled with soot. Then the mirror returned. Not glass, water, but black. So black it swallowed light. And floating inside it, me. But not just me. Versions of me. Dozens. Some standing still. Some running. One chained to a feeding table, sobbing as the tray came back empty. One digging through piles of ash. One smiling wide, his eyes stitched shut, mouth stretched too far to be real. I stepped closer. The water rippled. Then the surface split. A hand emerged. My hand. Except the nails were claws and the skin was paper thin, writhing with something underneath. I stumbled back, but it grabbed my shirt, dragged me forward, and I fell into myself. When I woke, I was at my desk in the firehouse. Everything was normal. Coffee brewed. Sunlight spilled through the windows. Merrick walked past and gave me a nod. Morning, Caleb. Alvarez laughed from the kitchen. You on dispatch today, or truck? I blinked. Truck. Attaboy. It was like none of it had ever happened. No mirror. No basement. No ledger. Nothing. Just a day like any other. But I knew better. Because every time I passed a window, my reflection didn't move. It stayed still, watching, grinning, counting. I ran to the bathroom mirror, turned on the light. There were 2 of me, one in the glass, one in the room. The one in the mirror leaned forward and whispered something against the inside of the glass. You're the dream now. I'm the real one. Then he smiled wider, raised a finger, and scratched my name backward into the foggy surface. I smashed every mirror in the firehouse. Didn't matter. The reflections came back, even in puddles, in windows, in chrome, everywhere, watching. They whispered names at night while I tried to sleep. Not mine, yours. Names of the firefighters, the dispatcher, the city councilman, the mayor, everyone. Alvarez started acting strange next. He stopped sleeping, started standing in corners, facing the wall, whispering in numbers. At first we thought it was PTSD. Then we found a list in his locker. Every number matched a date. Every date matched a missing person from town. He wasn't whispering numbers. He was counting meals. I tried to talk to Merrick, but he was gone again. His office wasn't missing this time. Just wrong. The inside stretched for miles. Bookshelves filled with breathing ledgers. Desks made of bone. A globe that spun on its own. Every continent shaped like a different face. And on the wall behind his desk, a painting. Me, feeding the tray, smiling, bleeding from the eyes. There was no way out. I tried the doors. Every time I stepped outside, I looped back in, leave through the garage, wake up in the locker room, climb out the second-story window, find myself crawling through the basement chute, try to hang myself in the hose tower. The rope turned to worms. They hissed in my ear. We need you. You're the one who stayed. I made a decision. If I couldn't leave, I'd burn it down. All of it. I soaked the walls in kerosene. Every locker. Every hallway. The old records room. Even the sacred bell tower that hadn't rung since '94. Then I stood in the kitchen, lit a match, dropped it. The fire took instantly. Flames roared up the walls like they'd been waiting all along. Smoke billowed. Alarm screamed. The firehouse wailed. But it didn't fall. The fire didn't consume it. It fed it. The flames turned black, then blue, then that deep, sickly red, the same color as the thing's eyes. The floor split open beneath me, and from the cracks, they crawled out, the reflections, hundreds of them, all me, some burned, some smiling, some crying, all hungry. They surrounded me, lifted me, held me over the pit. Then they spoke in one voice. You were always a fire. And dropped me. I hit the floor of the real basement. Back to the start. The tray was waiting. Bone. Bloody. This time, there was only one thing on it. A tooth. Not human. Too long. Too thin. Too sharp. With my name carved into the root. I picked it up. And the firehouse sighed. A long, slow breath of satisfaction. The fire remembers. The tooth whispered when I held it. Not with sound, but memory. I saw a flickering image in my mind, like a film reel catching fire mid-play. A firefighter from the 1940s. Tall, broad, kind eyes. He held the same tooth, and he was screaming. Then came another, and another. Generations of us, each one marked, each one broken. This wasn't Firehouse. It was a factory. We didn't fight flames. We fed them. I threw the tooth across the room. It bounced once, then vanished in the floor like it had never existed. The tray remained. Empty, open, hungry. The chute groaned beside me, not from movement, but anticipation. It wanted something. I looked down at my hands. Burned, blistered. My nails blackened from where I'd gripped the match. I could still smell the smoke, except it wasn't on my skin. It was inside me. The fire hadn't failed. It had worked, but not the way I hoped. It didn't destroy the station. It awoke it. The walls throbbed when I walked. The floor creaked with heat. Doors no longer led to rooms. They opened into places I didn't recognize. One room showed my childhood bedroom, but the posters on the walls were of things I hadn't seen yet. Another room showed the city, empty, the sky bleeding ash. Each time I stepped away, the door would sigh shut like it had exhaled. I was being shown what was coming, or what had already happened. The others were gone. Merrick, Alvarez, the new rookies, Dispatch. Their gear remained, neatly folded in their lockers. Their boots stood in rows at the front entrance. Their radios all whispered the same phrase on a loop. In the smoke, we remember. I reached for the ledger, but it had changed again. Now it was written on skin. Pale, vain, alive. When I opened the cover, it flinched. The list of names was gone. Only one word remained, written across the page in black, bleeding script. Offering. Then a new page turned itself. My name had been replaced. In its place, the town. I understood. Then it wasn't about individuals anymore. The cycle had grown hungry. Too many names. Too many delays. Too many incomplete offerings. The ledger was done with one by one. It wanted all of them. The whole damn town. I ran to the radio tower above the engine bay. Climbed a ladder with torn palms, coughing smoke. At the top, I threw the emergency switch. The siren screamed to life. Citywide fire alert. I grabbed the mic. Evacuate. Now. Anyone who can hear this. Get out. The firehouse is compromised. This isn't a drill. Static. Then a dozen voices responded. None of them human. All of them mine. Whispering in unison. No one's leaving, Caleb. We're all already inside. I stumbled back down. The walls melted as I moved. Pictures warped into mouths. Tiles became blinking eyes. The floor turned hot, scalding. And still, the kitchen tray waited. Now covered in names. All written in blood. Caitlin, Alvarez, Merrick, even my sister, even me. I took the tray, slammed it into the chute. No meat, no name, just rage. The chute sucked it in, laughed, a sound like crackling bone and snapping teeth. Then, from the basement, a chime, the station bell, the one that hadn't rung in 30 years. It rang once, twice, then 13 times. The firehouse began to shift. Literally. The walls expanded, stretched, grew. I watched as the engine bay swallowed the trucks. The tower cracked the sky open, and from the open garage door, I saw the town beyond us change. Street lights turned red. Houses sagged. People stood on porches, looking toward the firehouse, as if hypnotized, as if waiting for a call, as if they already knew. My reflection was waiting in the locker room. He sat calmly on the bench, cleaning soot from his boots. "You've done well," he said, standing. I raised a knife. He didn't flinch. "Go ahead. I'm you. You're me. You kill me, you stay. You run, you still stay. We're rooted now, Caleb." I didn't strike. He stepped closer, whispered, "You just needed to light the match." The rest was already written. That's when I remembered the painting in Merrick's office. Me, feeding the tray, smiling, bleeding. It wasn't a prediction. It was a memory. This had all happened before, hundreds of times. Each new feeder believing they were the first. Each one lighting the fire, thinking they could stop the cycle. Each one feeding it instead. I ran to the basement. The door was gone again, but the stairs were still there. I didn't hesitate. I descended, not because I thought I could stop it, but because I needed to know what it truly was. The chamber had changed again. This time, it looked like a fire engine, but inside out, rusted, screaming. Its sirens were mouths. Its ladders were spines. And strapped to its seat was me, burned, broken, still breathing, mouth sewn shut, holding the same tooth. It looked up at me and whispered, even without lips, "It's your turn to drive. The fire engine that eats." I stepped forward. The burned version of me, stitched and wheezing, reached out, holding the blackened tooth again. Its arm cracked like charred wood, fingers shaking, eyes begging. I took it. The moment it touched my palm, the chamber spun. The walls groaned. Sirens wailed, not the warning kind. These howled like grief itself had been wired into the alarms. And then the engine's eyes opened. Yes, eyes. 6 of them. Each one hidden behind rusted chrome, staring through the mirrors, the windshield, the grill, watching me, studying, recognizing. The voice came from the speakers. "Let's go for a ride." The engine lurched forward. I wasn't driving. There was no wheel, just a set of levers made of bone, dripping ash, embedded in a dashboard of flayed skin. The lights flicked on, red and blue, but the colors were wrong. They pulsed like organs, not bulbs. The sirens wailed again, and the back of the firehouse opened like a mouth. We surged forward, and suddenly, we were no longer in the basement. We were in the town, except not the town as I remembered it. The streets were twisted. Lampposts leaned like watching figures. Houses blinked. Storefronts whispered. Children stood still on swings, watching the engine pass, their mouths stitched shut, their eyes glowing faint red. The engine slowed. Something in the hose bed shifted. I turned and saw the tray again. Still there, now covering the pile of photos. People, dozens of them, all with my name written underneath. Not their names, mine. Every one, every picture said, Caleb Wilder, offering hashtag ____. The numbers went into the hundreds. Then I understood. This wasn't my first ride, not even my 100th. I'd ridden this thing before, driven it, fed it, hundreds of cycles, hundreds of sacrifices. My soul split across versions, timelines, fractured firehouse basements, all feeding it. The engine pulled up outside my old childhood home. I hadn't been here in years. It looked just like I remembered, until I stepped out. The sky above the house spun like a vortex. The clouds formed teeth. The front door was open, and inside, standing still, was my mother. She smiled, but it wasn't real. Her eyes were wide and glassy. Her arms held out like she was waiting for something. I stepped inside. The walls pulsed with heat. The entire house had become flesh. She spoke without opening her mouth. "It's always been family first, Caleb." A hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun, knife raised. Behind me stood my father, dead, 15 years. Still wearing the bunker gear he died in. He didn't speak. He just pulled a photo from his pocket and held it out. Me, younger, feeding the tray for the first time, crying, covered in soot, and behind me in the image, the reflection, watching, smiling, holding the tooth. The floor collapsed. I fell through endless memories, back through every shift, every scream, every mirror, every name I wrote in the ledger. And when I hit bottom, I was back in the basement, alone, no engine, no family, just a firehouse. Whole again, silent, until the walls whispered, "You're almost home." The tray returned. One last time. No meat, no tooth, no name. Only a key. Old, iron, cold, tied with a piece of scorched leather. On it, carved deep, door to one. I took it upstairs. The hallway stretched impossibly long now. Hundreds of doors, all marked with symbols. One glowed, a circle with a line through it. I unlocked it, and behind that door was me, tied to a chair, bleeding from the mouth, eyes rolled back. Merrick stood beside me, his face gone, just a mouth now, from forehead to jaw. It whispered without sound, "Burn him again, start over, or stay and feed." I had a choice. Let the cycle restart, erase everything, go back to the first day, the scared kid walking into Station 17, thinking it was just another job, or stay, and finally face what was waiting beneath. I turned to leave, but the room began to melt. Not burn, melt. Time lost shape. The lights flickered, then turned black, and one by one, all the other doors opened. Reflections stepped out. Dozens, hundreds, all of me, some screaming, some begging, all whispering the same phrase. "It's time to choose." Then the final voice. Not mine, not theirs, hers, Caitlin, from everywhere at once. Soft, kind, damned. Feed it one last time, Caleb, and it'll let us rest. I turned. The tray was there, the knife beside it, waiting, and the ledger still bleeding, open to a blank page. One final name, mine, with a single empty space beneath it, waiting for a signature, or a sacrifice. The final offering. The tray was trembling. The bone had begun to crack at the edges, thin fissures webbing across its surface like it couldn't hold the weight of what came next. The knife beside it shimmered in the dim firelight, not with reflection, but movement. There were shapes within the blade, faces, screaming, and the ledger waited like a hungry god. Its page pulsed. The name Caleb Wilder glowed, faintly red, and beneath it, a single empty line. I understood. It wasn't asking me to sign. It was asking me to complete the story, to write the last word, to choose what fed the fire, my life or something worse. I paced the firehouse. What remained of it? The walls were thin now, like paper soaked in blood. Through them, I could hear the town, or what was left of it. The engine still idled outside. Only now it had grown legs. It prowled like a hunting dog, waiting for the siren to sound. Every phone in the house rang at once, but they didn't ring with calls. They rang with sobs, voices whispering, "Finish it, please, let us go." I found Caitlin in the break room. She was sitting at the table, untouched coffee beside her, eyes sunken, skin gray, like a photo left out in the sun too long. She didn't blink, didn't speak, only mouthed one thing, again and again. "No one gets out unless you do it right." I went to the mirror, not a regular one. The mirror, the one that had started it all, the one buried beneath the first fire. It was waiting. It no longer reflected me. It reflected the firehouse, burning, reflected the cycle. Me becoming Merrick, Merrick becoming the last feeding the first. But in the very center, a spark, small, pure, a moment of choice. I took the knife, held above the tray. My hand hovered, then stopped, because I remembered. The voices weren't asking me to die. They were asking me to end it, to feed the fire not a soul, but a lie. I returned to the ledger, opened the page, and wrote, not my name, not Caitlin's, not Merrick's, just one word, none. The moment I finished the stroke, the firehouse screamed. Not a metaphor, it actually screamed. The walls split apart like splitting skin. The ceiling collapsed upward into a sky made of mouths. The sirens melted. The tray cracked into dust. The knife shattered into smoke. And the ledger, it caught fire. Bright, hot, holy. The basement exploded into light. A blinding white that cut through every shadow, that burned the hunger out of the walls. For a moment, just a moment, I saw the creature, not as a monster, not as a god, but as a man, sitting, alone, starving, because he'd been forgotten, because someone once locked him down here and called it tradition. And that man looked up, tears in his eyes, and said, "Thank you." Then he was gone, and so was the firehouse. I woke up in an empty lot, no building, no trucks, just ash and blackened soil. But the town was normal. People walked past me. No glowing eyes, no stitched mouths, just laughter, footsteps, life. I stood, dizzy, weak. Caitlin walked by. She didn't know me. Alvarez sat in the diner window, sipping coffee, joking with the waitress. His eyes were clear, his smile real. The cycle was broken. The first true shift had finally ended. No tray, no name, no fire, just sky and peace. That night, I visited where the firehouse had once stood, left a single match on the ground, not lit, just there, in case someone forgot, in case something ever remembered. Because even when the fire sleeps, it dreams. The End Fire Blackheart.